It's funny. We always hear about how likely projects are to fail.
Right.
And you know what? It turns out a lot of those could be avoided if we just manage the problems better.
Yeah, that's so true.
Like imagine you've got all the best ingredients, right? Like you're all set to make something amazing,
Yeah,
and then you totally burn the dish because you weren't paying attention.
it's true.
That's kind of what it's like when a project goes off the rails. So today we're going to dive into that. We're going to figure out how to spot those moments where things are about to go wrong and how to keep everything on track.
Yeah, I love that analogy. And you're right, we can make all the plans in the world, but if we don't know how to handle things going wrong, it's going to be a rough ride. That's why understanding risks versus issues is so important.
Right, because it's like, okay, yeah, checking the weather is one thing. But if you leave the house without an umbrella
Exactly.
and then get caught in a downpour,
Mm.
not ideal. So how do we avoid being caught out in the rain, metaphorically speaking, when it comes to our projects?
The key is being proactive. Now, we were talking about project management earlier, and you mentioned risk registers, right?
Oh, yeah, definitely. For me, that's always a must, is where we list out all the things that could potentially go sideways. Kind of like our project's crystal ball, but ideally, with a better track record.
I like it. And the trick is to actually use that crystal ball, not just create it and then forget about it. So we're talking reviewing it regularly with the team, seeing how the chances of each risk happening might have changed, really keeping it up to date.
Okay, so we're actively monitoring our potential problems. That makes sense. But when does a risk, like a what if, actually turn into a, oh no, we have a problem issue?
That's where triggers come in. They're like your early warning system, right? You're basically setting specific things that if they happen, it's time to act. Let's say you're working on a website redesign. One risk might be the vendor missing the deadline for those first design mockups.
Oh yeah, I've been there.
Right. So the trigger could be something like if they haven't shared those designs by date, boom, that risk just became a real issue.
Makes sense. So we're not waiting for things to blow up. We're anticipating.
Exactly. That's how we become proactive instead of reactive. It's like having a fire extinguisher ready to go instead of scrambling to find one when the place is already burning.
So the vendor, they're officially behind on those website designs. What now? Do we freak out, or is there a game plan for this kind of thing?
First things first, let's not hit the panic button just yet. We can totally handle this strategically. Step one is figuring out how bad it really is. What's the impact here?
Yeah, because, a small delay is one thing, right? But if it's going to throw the whole project timeline off, yikes.
Exactly. We've got to think about the domino effect. What other tasks are affected by this? What about the budget? And does it impact the quality of the work overall?
Okay, so we've assessed the damage, right?
Right.
Now what? How do we actually fix this?
Prioritization is key here. Just like you don't want to be doing a million things at once when you're cooking, you got to focus on the most critical issues first.
So say the vendor is late with designs for, I don't know, a big fundraising campaign website. That's probably a bigger deal than running a little behind on some internal training materials, right?
You got it. And there's actually a tool for this, the issue prioritization matrix. It helps you visualize things, see where everything stands in terms of impact and urgency.
Okay, so break that down for me. How does this matrix thing actually work?
So picture a graph, right? One side is the potential impact of the issue, like if we do nothing, worst case scenario versus minor inconvenience. The other side, that's your urgency level. 5-alarm fire, or can it wait a bit?
So if something's high impact, anti-urgent, it goes straight to the top of the list.
Exactly. Then once you've got your priorities straight, you can start figuring out how to attack the problem, how to mitigate.
Okay, let's talk solutions. What are some of the usual moves here?
Well, we want to think about both the short-term and the long-term game. Immediate mitigation, that's damage control. Think of it like a Band-Aid while we figure out if we need stitches.
So in our website example, a short-term fix could be throwing up a simple placeholder page while we wait for the fancy designs.
Exactly. Might not be ideal, but it keeps things moving. Then, the long-term fix, that's about addressing the root cause with the vendor. Maybe there was a misunderstanding about deadlines or they're swamped, who knows. But getting to the bottom of it helps prevent the same issue from popping up again.
Makes sense. We're prioritizing, we're mitigating. But I gotta say, this could get pretty messy to keep track of if there are multiple issues flying around. How do we stay organized in all this?
Documentation is your best friend specifically. An issue log. Think of it as your one-stop shop for everything related to, issues.
An issue log. Okay, I'm intrigued. What goes in this record of Project Chaos? So it's like a case file, a record of each problem. Okay, what kind of things do we need to actually write down?
Well, you want to make sure you got all the important stuff, right? So first, obviously, what the issue actually, IS, like a clear description. And when it popped up, can't forget that. Then there's the impact, right? Like, remember how we talked about the domino effect? We got to know what's at stake if this thing doesn't get fixed. And of course, we're going to jot down any potential solutions, both the quick fixes and the long-term ones.
Right, got to have that plan. Okay, so who else needs to know about this? Besides us, I mean.
You're totally right to bring that up. Communication is key. So in the issue log, you want to be really clear about who's responsible for fixing the issue and what the deadline is. That way, no one's left hanging and things don't slip through the cracks.
And it's a good way to learn from our mistakes, too, right? Like
Yeah.
if a similar issue comes up in another project, we can look back and see what worked last time.
100%. It's all about getting better each time. But sometimes, you got those issues, those really big ones that kind of throw the whole plan out the window.
Okay, yeah, now those sound scary. Like what?
So let's say with our website, right? Imagine there's this massive platform update, totally unexpected, and now it's going to take way longer and cost a lot more to get things done. Those kinds of things, you can't just log it and slap a Band-Aid on it.
So what do? Give up?
Not quite. This is when you bring out the big guns. Change requests. Basically, you're hitting pause on the whole thing and saying, hold on, we need to adjust the plan here.
Like a formal do-over.
Pretty much. You're writing down the issue, explaining the changes you need to make, maybe the scope, budget, or timeline, and getting everyone on board. Transparency is key.
Yeah, no one likes surprises when it comes to deadlines and budgets. So communication is super important throughout this whole process, right?
Absolutely. It's the most important thing. Think about it. Your team, the client, other vendors, everyone needs to be in the loop.
Okay, so how do we make sure everyone's on the same page? Any tips for keeping everyone updated?
Well, first off, make sure you're talking to everyone affected by the issue. Don't leave anyone out. Then you got to use a mix of those formal channels, meeting notes, updates in your project management software, those change requests we talked about, and also just those informal check-ins and conversations.
So it's not enough to just write everything down. We got to make sure people actually see it and understand it.
Exactly. That's how you turn those oh no, what now moments into chances to communicate and work together better.
This has been awesome. Thanks so much for breaking all of this down, from spotting those little warning signs to handling those big project bombshells. Before we wrap up, any final wisdom to share?
Just remember, you can do this. Be proactive, work together, and stay organized, and you can navigate pretty much any project chaos that comes your way. You'll get to that finish line.
Love it. Thanks again for the amazing insights. And to all of you listening, thanks for joining us for another deep dive. Until next time, happy problem solving.